I'm Lyndi, and I'm the Associate Director of Wellness Nutrition Policy at the Harkin Institute, but I'm also your state regulatory specialist, so I'm part of the Iowa Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics policy team. We have a really great team. Tina Bauermeister, wave, is another member of that team. She's our state policy representative, so she's in charge of all of our state work. And then Lori Winburn, I don't know if she's in here, there, yep, right over here. She's our state public policy coordinator, so she's in charge of everything. And then Pat Hillebrand, who's not here, is our licensure chair. So amongst us, we are your policy team, and we are doing our best to advocate for all of you in Iowa and then at the federal level. So I'm here today to talk to you about why I think you should think policy is important and how to get more engaged in it. And then I'll let Christina kind of introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Christina Campbell, and as Lori said, I'm faculty at Iowa State University, and I am part of this team, and the fact that Lyndi and I have been working together for a long time. She was one of my grad students, and I guess I'm here to talk about policy because she has been one of the major people that has inspired me to learn more about how to get involved with policy. So sort of a little bit of a role reversal. She learned from me and I learned from her. And so we're going to talk to you about how to get more involved and understanding what it means to know what your own food policy is and what that term means. So when she said we haven't practiced this, what we did do is we made it so that we knew which each person was presenting each slide. And so, but now we can't see that. So it's like, so that's what we're trying to fix right now is that can we see who has which slide? No.
Otherwise, we'll just wing it.
Yeah.
Maybe one of you guys can go up and do the slides and sit there. We will not do that.
Okay.
Okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are our learning objectives. These are also in your agenda, so we'll skip through these. Okay, so this is probably well, we're going to talk all about food nutrition, so this entire presentation is about that, but this is the most technical, clinical, dietetic, behavioral thing you're going to see today, which it's a behavior theory framework. So the stages of change are a trained theoretical model. All of you should be familiar with it, except we're going to apply it to policy. So many of you might think about policy like this. Policy, who cares? What's that? Anybody? Can you raise your hand if you feel like you're in the pre-contemplation policy stage? Nobody, great. Okay, number 2, contemplation. So you know what policy is, why it's important, but you really don't know how to get engaged. So who's in that contemplation stage of policy? Okay, so pretty fair amount. Okay, next, preparation. I'm doing my research, identifying my priorities. Okay, who's preparing for a food policy? Oh, nobody. Okay, maybe Brian, yeah. Okay, action. Who feels like they're actively integrating the concept of policy into their everyday work and vernacular? A couple people. Lori, Tina, I should be seeing you here as well. Okay, and then anybody feel like they're in the maintenance phase where policy is important and it's part of your profession? Yay! That's my public health. I will put a public health table over there. It's great. Okay.
There were a lot of people who didn't raise their hand.
So let's ask the question again. Well, hopefully none of you are in relapse or termination. So let's say pre-contemplation again. Who's in the pre-contemplation stage? Should see a lot more hands. Okay, who just doesn't care? Okay, so think about where you are today, and hopefully at the end of this, all of you will be more in that either preparation, action, or if you feel like you're in the action now, in the maintenance phase. We're going to give you the tools that you need to be at one of those phases today, and then really talk to you about why it's important for policy to be your passion as well as a part of our profession.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and I just want you to, I'm going to give you a few moments to kind of think through an answer that you don't have to share. But I want to know then, why do you want to get more involved with public policy? So kind of think about that. Like, do you have an answer to that? Why do you want to get more involved? Okay, so now, what does public policy mean to you? on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is I know nothing and 10 is I know everything, what's your comfort level with public policy? Right? So a lot of times when I ask people this question, they really end up down at like a 1, 2, 3 if we're lucky, except for maybe that table over there, right? If you're anything like me, then you know that you want to be involved and you want to get involved, but you're kind of overwhelmed by all of the things that you don't know. Okay, so there's a lot that you feel like you don't know. I feel like I don't know. I know I want to be involved. I know I'm supposed to be involved, but I just really don't know where to start and how to get comfortable with that. And by doing that, I would have to admit there are things I don't know, right? So I wanted to share a little bit of a story with you. I just got back from this conference where everybody was like, let me share a story. It all started off with stories. But stories are important, and stories frame where we are and provide some context that is important for how to move forward. So on your left, you can see this photo here. This photo is, this is my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-grandfather, and my great-uncle. And this was taken probably in the late 1940s, early 1950s. My grandmother, I never knew my great-grandfather, but my grandmother grew up the daughter of the governor of Nebraska. And that was a really important, big deal in my household. So this man, Dwight Griswold, was the governor of Nebraska, and he was also a U.S. Senator. And I grew up with the stories that he was extremely good friends with President Eisenhower and spent a lot of time golfing and engaging socially with George MacArthur. And so that was sort of the stage that was set as far as the expectations for politics in my household, and that we were a political family. Now, my family, so this picture here is now my father when he was probably like 23, 24. This is me, and this was my grandmother and my great-grandmother. Now, my great-grandmother had traveled the world as a diplomat's wife. She had been to Greece, she had been to all sorts of countries, and she had brought home all these treasures. They were all inventoried because we were a political and diplomatic family. And we were also a family that loved to argue and debate. Everybody wanted to debate. And so that was like every family gathering was about having a debate, a conversation that was focused on who could win because who knew more. And so you would think that would then make me want to be more engaged politically or like align me with a political career. It did the opposite. It made me run to science because science was objective and that I could build my facts and I could present my case and I could stand on that. And so politics was something that I felt and went into my young adult life, physically, verbally saying to people, I don't do politics. I'm in nutrition, I don't do politics. So about the time that my 3 children were young, I then ran into a colleague who we had just hired, and I said to her in some conversation that I don't do politics, and she said, you're in nutrition, right? And I said, well, yeah, of course, we both are. And she said, you do politics. And I said, no, I don't. I don't do politics. Knowing that my history is a political background and that I'm running from that. And so it was at that point where I was like, oh, nutrition and politics might have something to do with each other. And so now my kids who are like turned sideways in this photo, sometimes they are turned sideways. And so it is then with my 3 kids that understanding why it is so important to be engaged politically and to understand how nutrition plays a role in politics and in policy. And so I guess that then to kind of put in the timeline with these 3 kids, I would then say that the other key motivator in knowing that I needed to be more engaged was then observing Lyndi's practice during her graduate program and seeing how she too didn't necessarily come from a background that in her training that said, like, here's your training in policy and politics, and that so therefore it's easy for you to enter in. She got engaged. She chose to do that because she felt some sort of responsibility. And so watching her do that, I said, how do you do that? How are you getting more involved? And so, so that's the story, and the lesson that I think that is important is that a lot of us don't think or don't know how to get involved. And so we're going to talk to you about how to get involved. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Women received the right to vote in what year? 19. Okay. Good job. So women received the right to vote in 1920. So now, was this all women? Okay, a few of you say no. Some of you are like, well, maybe. So women received the right to vote in 1920. When did Native American women receive the right to vote? When did immigrants from China receive the right to vote? When did first Japanese American receive the right to vote? So Native American women received the right to vote in 1948. Immigrants from China received the right to vote in 1943. And first generation Japanese Americans received the right to vote in 1952. Did women of color get the right to vote? No, not until 1965. So when we learn that women gained the right to vote in 1920, we think it's women. All women. And it wasn't all women. It was women who were white. So why do you think that this story is important to our talk today? So it's important to our talk today because there were women who advocated for our right to vote, but they had to convince the people in power that we needed the right to vote. And those people of power were then trying to convince men who were in the position of power. And so women were advocating for other women for the right to vote and had to convince those who were in charge, and those were men. And so that is then going to be very similar to where we are today, that when we are in a position of power, that we are then persuading others to allow other individuals some aspect of attainment to their rights. So, okay, Lyndi, it's your turn.
Didn't even need a slide for that.
No, we knew that. I'm not talking about that.
Well, I mean, anybody can talk about this. So I'm going into the part where I'm going to talk about kind of our PES statement of policy. So problem, right? This is, how many of you have seen this slide at any kind of nutrition or health conference? Yes. I don't even have to ask you to raise your hands, so just raise them. So we see this often, and we know this is a problem, right, as dietitians, and it's not necessarily because we have a large percentage of our population is overweight or obese, it's what it's related to. So this is 59 here represents the score that we have for our diet quality in America today. So this is based off of the Healthy Eating Index, which is a metric of the dietary guidelines for Americans. So most Americans are failing in terms of meeting the recommended dietary guidelines. And then more so than that, what we're seeing on this graph is anything that's going to your left, all the bars going down, or where we're not, that's how many people are not actually meeting the recommended value of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, what else is up there? Everything we want to see people going up. However, if you see those three things where we see the bar going to your right, that's added sugar, saturated fat, sodium. That's how many people are exceeding those recommendations. So we know this is a problem. So why do we care? We care as nutrition professionals and food professionals because 6 of the top 10 causes of death are diet-related chronic conditions, or from diet-related chronic conditions. We know the average healthy eating score is a failing grade, and we know we don't eat enough fruits, vegetables, whole grains. We eat too much added sugar, too much fat, too much sodium. And we are the ones who can help people make those changes to do those positive things to solve this problem, right? However, we also know, or some of us in this room might know, that there's underlying problems. So the etiology of it might not be because people don't know how to eat the right fruits and vegetables, or maybe they haven't had access for us to tell them how to do that. They haven't had the right education. So this is another map. This is a map of food deserts. So where people have no car or access to a local supermarket to food, not even necessarily healthy foods. This could be a problem in rural America today in Iowa. We also are seeing a lot of research out about how this is you see the different numbers up there, they represent the life expectancy in different zip codes. So you can go from zip code to zip code and see almost a 10-year difference in life expectancy for certain people, related back again to all of these underlying issues that are causing this larger problem. And then also a lot of you probably are hearing, I feel like it's a hot word, or maybe it's been around for a while, but I hear it everywhere, social determinants of health. So it's not even, our health is not really determined just by the healthcare system. So if we go to the doctor, it's not just related to our physical environment or even our health behavior, so what we eat. A huge portion of it is related to our socioeconomic factors. So our access to food, our socioeconomic status, our community we live in. There's all these other factors that are contributing to the larger problem, and we know how to fix that problem, right? However, when we start to think about policy, and this has been referenced throughout the day, I've been trying to take notes and relate everything back to policy because that's the kind of nerd I am now. But a big issue I think in this room that we talk about as dietitians is we're not reimbursed for our care, right? In Iowa, and I'll talk about this later, dietitians are not reimbursed through Medicaid for providing care, yet doctors and nurse practitioners are reimbursed for that care. So that's a problem, right? We know how to help patients, but yet we aren't getting reimbursed for it. So that's a policy issue. Healthcare systems, so reimbursement for care, service delivery, different types of payment models, that's all something that we can solve through policy. But we also have things like food advertising, food marketing, and media. So we can't tell someone that it's easy to go be healthy when they're being bombarded every single day with these reasons not to be healthy. So a lot of that can be supported through good policy. And then there's also things like food and agricultural policies. So the Farm Bill, which is typically what you think of as an ag bill, the largest percentage, or most of the money from the Farm Bill actually goes to SNAP, so Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is formerly known as food stamps. That is a feeding program. So a large portion of farm or food and agriculture policies is for food and nutrition purposes. And then there's also economic systems. So how much money are people making? Can they afford that food? And then also the societal and cultural norms and values surrounding food. So those are all big policy, big P issues, but they all trickle down and affect our everyday practice. So if you work with patients and you tell them like, I can help you, however I can't because you're gonna have to pay me to help you out of your pocket. Instead, we need to use policy to say, I'm gonna go to the state level and say, hey, how can you help me get reimbursed to provide care that I know I can give to patients and they don't have to pay for it. But it's gonna be a good return for you in the end because people are gonna get less sick. So these are all big reasons why we should care about policy. So this is just another, obviously you can tell I like pictures and models and all those things. So this is just another look at a larger system model to show you, look at how far government out is from the individual issues that we talk about on a daily basis with our consumers and our patients. If we think about policy, we can have these huge downstream effects if we can change those big P's. Okay.
Okay, thanks. So
was that too heavy?
We're going to lighten it up a little. Several years ago, so again, sort of following Lyndi's lead, and I said, how do I get more involved? And she said, you can do the action alert. And I was like, okay, what's an action alert? And we're going to talk more about that. But that was the first sort of entry point, like just do the action alerts. So we'll talk about that. Then I said, okay, what's the next thing I should do? And she said, oh, you should apply for one of the scholarships. So you can go to Washington, D.C. and do the public policy workshop that's offered through the Academy. So I applied for the scholarship through the Iowa Academy, got that scholarship, and then we went. And I was really worried because I'm like, how am I going to go talk to these legislators? Because I really don't understand this system, and I really don't understand this lingo because, again, I don't do politics. And so, so they said, don't worry, the topic this year is malnutrition, and here's all the talking points. So all you have to do is memorize these facts really fast. And I kept asking Lyndi, tell me that number again, tell me that number again. Okay, what was I supposed to say? And so I was really kind of hung up on, okay, I just have to get the script down. And so then I finally, when we were in talking to one of Steve King's office workers, I realized, I was like, wait a second, malnutrition, pregnancy. I do pregnancy-related research. I can relate what we're talking about, and I can tell this story about pregnancy and how important nutrition is during pregnancy for the future of our country. And so as soon as I did that and got away from the numbers because I was talking about something I was passionate about, all of a sudden we had this amazing conversation, and the person kind of came to the front of the sofa and was like, tell me more about that. And I was like, oh, and we had walked in there thinking this is not going to go well. And she was really interested in what we had to say. So I would encourage you to find out what are you passionate about, even though the Academy will have priority areas for you to advocate for, but if you weave in your own story, it becomes easier for you to talk about it. So I guess I just said all those three things. Yeah. So what I really had to come to terms with, and this is like true confession time, so it was a long time ago when I took that U.S. History American Government class, right? I was like 13, and that was a long time ago. And so again, I don't do politics, and so I had run from that because I didn't need that in my arsenal of tools for my job. And so it became very evident to me when I got to Washington, like, oh my gosh, I don't get this lingo. So again, I think of course I'm the only one in this room that doesn't know what they need to know about government policy and structure, right? So, we're going to take a little quiz. Go, helpers, go. So, my multiple helpers are walking around the room, and they are bringing you all a quiz, because you know I am an educator. And what better way to know and find out what we don't really know than to have to take a quiz?
I feel like we should get the IDPH tables to spread out through the room.
No, we should find out how we do. So, on the back of the page is a word bank. Okay? So, with this word bank, I want you to fill in the diagram that is in front of you. You may work in groups, and we will give you 2 minutes because, of course, that's all you will need. Does anybody else need a copy of the quiz?
I think So, what are our
check. How's everybody doing?
Will be graded. You are not allowed to leave until it is done. I'm kidding.
We're doing a quiz?
the room to be totally silent, and I want you to give yourself a grade. So, are you gonna, for what you knew, okay? For what I knew, like being honest here, right? I failed that, right? I gave myself a D because I got 2 things filled in. I give myself a C because it's sort of average. I give myself a B because I'm above average on this content, or I give myself an A. How many people felt when they started looking at those words and trying to figure out how our federal government is structured, were like, whoa, I'm not so sure about that. I had already agreed to give a talk like this at Legislative Day last spring, and I was like, I think the lesson I learned when I went to Washington is like, I really need to go back and do my homework and figure out like, how is this set up? I'm like, there's this Congress building, and there are representatives over here, and there are senators over there. And so I then started to map it out once I got home to give this talk, and I was just like, okay, I know there are 3 branches. And I'm like, but I don't quite get this because I've got 3 branches. I've got like, oh, the president's over here, and then we've got Congress, and then we've got the Senate. And I'm like, wait, where does the Supreme Court live then? And so, again, as you start to work your way through that, what are things that you don't get? So, here's the answers. And so, yeah, so we have 3 branches. And so, what the big aha for me, and again, I'm being totally honest here so that you can understand that, like, there are things that we don't know, and it's okay not to know, and then once you finally realize, like, I need to know that. So we have the executive branch, the president, the vice president, and the cabinet. And so the cabinet is comprised of 15 different departments, and I've only listed 3 on this slide because the agriculture, education, and health and human services are directly related to the work that we do. Legislative, Congress, okay? So Congress is comprised of the Senate and the House of Representatives, and they make the laws. And then the judiciary branch, and that's the Supreme Court, they evaluate the laws, and then there are the lower courts. So those are the 3 branches. So when I first gave this quiz, this is the blank version of this is what I handed out. And so people were supposed to fill in this entire thing. So I modified it for the purposes of our talk today. But to further illustrate the complexity of and the relationship between all of the branches, right? So we have that checks and balances system, which is probably the one thing I remembered from my American government class a long time ago. Our government is based off of checks and balances. And so, so I'm not going to walk through this, but just so that you have a better understanding of the complexity and the relationships, and that to get further involved in policy where you feel uncomfortable, dive deep into that so that you can get more comfortable, so that you can understand who we're talking about when we talk about our representatives and our senators, and that that we have U.S. senators and that we have U.S. Representatives, right? And so both of them make up Congress. Okay, so so again, these are the 3 branches of the government, and I just already went through that. So the other thing is that, so really the other really important piece of information that had informed my knowledge of policy was Schoolhouse Rock, right? And so like, I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill, waiting to become law. That's all I do, right? And so that became important. I would encourage you to watch that Schoolhouse Rock because it really is good. And it really teaches you a lot, but it's not all that you need to know. So this is then the complex relationship between the Senate and the House with how a bill becomes a law, right? And so the one thing that I think is really important, because you'll start to see as you take a deeper dive that lots of these bills then have all these numbers and letters, and you're like, oh, what does all this mean? It gets really complex. Well, there's a numbering system or nomenclature to that, so that if you look at the top of this, the code of a bill, So a code will say HR, so it is in the House of Representatives, because both the House of Representatives and the Senate can introduce a bill. And then there is then the number of which that bill has been introduced, and then the congressional session. So that nomenclature then is not just some random way of naming something, and again, once you are aware of that, it introduces a new level of comfort into understanding the nomenclature and the language of this system. So Lyndi's going to talk about the state level because it's a little different.
A little different, still fairly similar.
Oh, sorry, that's okay.
And just because we're telling you all of this information today doesn't mean you need to become an expert on it. That is why our policy team at the state and then our policy team at the academy level is there, because they can be the experts on it. And what we really want you to take away is, if you want to learn more about it, here's all the ways to do it. And I'm going to talk about the state government, but at the end of the day, we really want you to understand why policy is important to you, and then making sure that you are the ones using your voice at that federal level when some of these bills come that are important to us, or at the state level when we go during our legislative session, which at the state level, so the state, does anyone know how often the state actual legislature is in session? I know some people do. I know Jill does. Yeah. Yeah, so our representatives in Iowa only meet from January to April, and that's usually, I mean, they try to get out there in April for sure. Some states, Montana, they only meet every 2 years. And in Texas too. I learned that's because in the old day, when people had to take the horses really far, it just took too long, so they'd only go every 2 years. So states run a little bit different. They're not like at our federal level where they're, I mean, you can hear it on the news all the time. They're always up there doing something. Whereas at the state level, they're only meeting from January to April-ish, so they're in the spring, so which is why we do our legislative day in the spring. So the Iowa government structure is similar. We have a governor, similar to a president, who's really the regulator and making sure those all the laws are actually being administered. And then they have elected officials underneath of them, which you can see some of them there, and then they also have appointed officials that are in different departments. But we also do have senators and representatives at our state level, our elected officials, and then we do have a judicial branch too in Iowa. But everybody in this room has a senator and 2 representatives at the state level that speak for them and their home district. So our lovely policy team, if you haven't been out to the exhibitor area, you can go out there, and what you'll see is, you can go out there to the exhibitor area and identify where your representative and your senator, where your district is, the people that represent you. I know we have, some of you might actually know them. We have at least one person who has a mother-in-law in this room who is a state senator. So I really ask you to go and look up and find your legislators and see who they are, because they might be related to you. I don't know. So this is a website you would go to find them, and then they're the ones who are meeting actually at the state capitol from January to April. Okay. So now we're going to move on. Does everyone feel like they have a great grasp of the federal and state government now? Okay. So now we're going to go and ask you to create your own food or nutrition policy platform using your existing knowledge, so what you already know, and then some new resources we're going to talk to you about today. So as we're going through all this, I want you to really identify your professional value, your professional passion, and then start to think about whether you know about the policies that exist already, or just policies that can fall underneath what your passion is. So even today, when I heard Nina and Chrissy talking about, I don't know where they are in this room, they were talking about how the choline adequate intake is not representative of pregnant women, right? So that their policy could be there, so they want better federal regulation of RDAs, DRIs, so that pregnant women, we'll make sure that we're giving pregnant women the right information about what their adequate intake of choline. So that could be, I feel like that was kind of a low-hanging one because he said it and I was trying to pull from it. But if if you work at a school, yours could be school nutrition. Just start to think about what your passion is. Okay. So these are some pictures of different times that I have, along with all the other policy people, have been to, whether it be the state capitol or the federal capitol. But this is a quote I got from Christina. That was, nothing would be done at all if we waited until one could do it so well that no one could find fault with it. You don't have to be a policy expert. You just have to be passionate about what you do and go and talk to people about it. Okay. So what's your food policy?
Right. So what's your food policy? So I put food policy there in quotations because last spring I was attending the Harkin Symposium that Lyndi had organized, and Bill Dietz was the speaker. And so he made, somebody was talking about the politicians and identifying who would be the appropriate candidates. And he said that with all the questions that were being asked of candidates, that one of the things that we should be doing is we should be forefront in asking candidates that are running for office, what's your food policy? And I thought, well, that's a great question. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what does food policy really mean, as far as like if you were going to get up in an audience for somebody who's running for an office in your state or for a president and you're like, hey, what's your food policy? And I was like, I think I should figure out what I would be expecting for an answer if I was to ask that question. But I just thought that was such, that was the one thing that really stuck with me after I left that meeting, was just like, what's your food policy? So I think it's really important that you you identify your own top 3 reasons why you should get involved with policy, and identifying your top 3 reasons why you don't get involved with policy, and then thinking about writing your own food policy. So like within that individual, like what foods do you strive to eat and why? Like when you think about what you're purchasing, why are you purchasing that? What's your own personal food policy for what you eat? And then at the government level, are you then advocating and supporting laws and programs that support food access? So, now contemplation. We're bringing it back to the stages of change.
Yes, okay. So again, the Academy has a ton of resources if you're interested in getting engaged in policy or politics. So the Academy, if you go to eatrightpro.org advocacy, it's going to have a ton of information about what they do at the Academy level to represent us at the federal level on Capitol Hill. You can also go to our own eatrightiowa.org, and I know Lori has updated it recently. We have an advocacy toolkit for our state, so you can go there and learn how to be a good advocate for the Academy there. You can also track legislation, whether it be at the federal level, so govtrack.us, or you can track Iowa legislation, and those are those websites. And then of course, and everybody should be doing this, you should be doing your action alerts. You'll get action alerts in your email from the Iowa Academy, from the larger Academy, and please do them. They're really easy. I'm going to go through them here in a little bit, but they are just a direct way for us to have our voice heard at the federal level. Okay. So here's the action alert. So when you get that email, click on it that says take action. It'll take you to the Action Center, which is at the Academy Eat Right Pro website. You're going to see it's going to have different legislative alerts for you. You can click on one of those, the federal alert. Go ahead and click through. It's going to click you through. Oh, there you go. I want to support TROA, which good news on TROA. Senator Ernst just signed on as a co-sponsor of TROA, which is the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act, and she is a state senator from Iowa. And that was largely because whoever in this room kept sending her action alerts or kept emailing her and bugging her. Well, hopefully she did it also for altruistic reasons. But it didn't hurt that we kept sending our action alerts saying, please support this bill. Dietitians in Iowa, who are your constituents, think this is important not only for our profession, but for all the people in Iowa, right? So you click on this, it takes you to a pre-formed email that all you have to do is either thank you, so that you can thank you. Senator Chuck Grassley was already a co-sponsor for TROA, so we could send him a thank you note. Or you can see that you can send Senator Ernst a note, or my representative is Representative Sydney Axby, so I could send each of them an email. It was a preformed email that says, you should support it, this is why you should support it. And I think if you click one more time, oh no, well it signs your name and it sends it on. That's it, it's that easy, right? So everyone should be doing it.
What did you say was the national average on how many dietitians are doing action alerts? 7%? What?
2 to 4.
2 to 4% nationally. And so we could easily be the leaders of action alert supporting in Iowa. I mean, if all of a sudden every single one of you as a member starts doing the action alerts, and all of a sudden we're like, whoa, look at that. The numbers in Iowa are 50%. Like, wow, that would be awesome.
That would be great, yes, and it's a good reflection on us too, because we get graded for it at the academy and larger level. So participate. This is again contemplation stage. Super easy, just click some buttons. And then this is again the resource tab for the Iowa Eat Right. You can go and find the toolkit that I was talking about there. Okay, and then also we have a political action committee, ANPAC. So the political action committee has. What political action committees do is they have money that they can then use to support specific candidates. So in Iowa, we could use it we could ask for ANPAC money to host a dinner for one of our state, local, federal representatives to talk to them, to pay for, essentially, to talk to them about why it's important to be a dietitian. So the Academy has funds that allow us to easily participate in policy and politics. So just be aware of that too, and we can help you with that if you're at all interested. Okay, I think this is you. Okay.
So now I'm going to talk to you just about a few resources that can make it easier for you to better understand what it means to have a food policy. So I'm not going to go through a lot of these specifics that are on these websites, but just to show you some of these resources that can be very advantageous to you. Some of these I was floored by the type of information you can get from them. So
this is my slide. Okay, so again, this is going back to Academy resources. If you go to the Academy page, this is the information you'll find. They break it down by public policy issues and specific issue areas. So right now the Academy's largely focused on diabetes and pre-diabetes for, obviously I don't need to tell everybody in this room why, but then you'll see all the bullets under there are active pieces of legislation that you can go and comment or learn a little bit more about if this is your passion area. The next one is healthcare reform. So again, all different areas, you can explore it if that's where your passion lies. HIV and AIDS is another priority area. Hunger, food security, and food safety. Nutrition in general, and then overweight and obesity. So if any of those spark an interest in you, go to the Academy website and learn more about the policies that are underneath of those specific issue areas. And then this one is the Iowa specific legislative priorities. So going into each legislative year, the Iowa at the state level, we have priorities as well that we take at our legislative day in the spring up to the state capitol and ask our state representatives to focus on. One of those that is on there and will continue to be on there until we see better action on it is reimbursement for dietitian services in Iowa. So if you're interested in that, you should be interested in Iowa politics. Okay, so one of these great resources is called the State of Obesity. So you can find this at stateofobesity.org. And so certainly this breaks obesity rates down by state and shows some change over time. But one of the sort of even more interesting aspects of this, because certainly we are very well aware of obesity rates and
could go to the CDC and we can find data on state obesity rates. But what this website does that I just think is so helpful is that you can start to go into different states and look at what policies exist within certain states that support the work that we do. And so, so here you can see that state policies to prevent obesity. And so I've clicked on this aspect that talks about early childhood. And so you can then compare sort of national versus Iowa. And so you can see here like early childhood, so breastfeeding is the first thing there. State has regulations, required licensed ECE programs to allow or encourage on-site breastfeeding. Iowa does not, okay? So, so you can go see that what are the policies that a lot of states have, and then does Iowa have this or not? And so are there things there that align with your passion that you might be interested in advocating for? So breastfeeding was one of those that's a national priority, National Academy of Dietetics, Nutrition and Dietetics priority area. So you can look at how is our state doing compared to the nation. So then I went and looked at schools, and so looking at physical education time requirement at the elementary schools and the high schools, and I went and did a little bit of looking to see like how much physical activity are we talking about. So at the elementary schools it's 150 minutes per week, and at the high schools it's 225 minutes per week. Neither one of these align with our current physical activity guideline recommendations for children of an hour per day on most days of the week. But you can see that only 6 schools in the country have physical activity time requirements, and Iowa is one of them, whereas 18 schools plus the District of Columbia have time requirements for elementary school, and Iowa does not. Same thing in community. You can look at some different aspects of what state policies exist, and that looking at policies related to the community to prevent obesity. You can see that the amount of food insecurity is present, and then how SNAP aligns in Iowa to state levels. And then, so that was state of obesity. The next thing is just Lyndi already made a comment about the Farm Bill. So for those of you who are students in the dietetics program at Iowa State, you learn about the Farm Bill. Dr. Ruth Litchfield does a great job of talking about the Farm Bill and bringing people in that can speak to that. I, for one, did not grow up knowing about the Farm Bill. I didn't grow up in an agricultural place, and again, I don't do politics. So anytime the Farm Bill has come up over the time, I'm like, it doesn't really relate to me, until, of course, you find out how much nutrition is part of the Farm Bill. So I found this excellent book that's called The Farm Bill, A Citizen's Guide, that kind of talks about the history of the Farm Bill, and it specifically talks about 2018, but it gives you the history about how we got to where we are today, and the situations that were existing in our own country that then necessitated certain laws that went into place. And so those laws that went into place at the time were really important for what was going on in our country, and so they have persisted as maybe some other aspects of what's occurring in our country have changed. And so, so the Farm Bill, that book really helped me begin to sift through, like, how does the Farm Bill, work? How did we get to where we are today? And again, like, I could start to see how, as a dietitian, I fit into needing to, I need to own the Farm Bill. So another website that is extremely valuable is the Food Research and Action Center. And so, it's a wealth of information, but you will find a lot of information about SNAP on this website. And so again, coming back to the state of obesity, looking at the SNAP program and how that our state compares to other states. The Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, that again has a direct relationship to the work that we do as dietitians. And so it's another way for you as a dietitian, if this is part of your passion, whether it's the direct role that you have as a dietitian in your job, it's another way for you to get involved. Farm to school programs. So again, farm to school programs on that State of Obesity website, you can see how many different states have farm to school programs. And again, is there a policy around farm to school programs that maybe that's something that you're interested in being involved with? Same thing with the National Farm to School, and lots of information on the Food Corps website, so that again, it's a way to get involved if this is something that's of interest to you. So again, more about the Food Corps. And then another is the Maternal and Child Health Association. So I was just looking up, okay, so my passion area is promoting healthy pregnancies. And so, what is out there as it relates to maternal and child health. So this website then gave me some more information. Okay, state of the plate. So this is like the best website ever, because it starts to, you can look up who certain representatives are within your state, and you can see how they voted on things that are related to nutrition and food. And so you can go in and find out what their food policy is, so that you can start to figure out, is this somebody that I want to vote for? And it also provides you with speaking points to like, okay, so here's the food policy that we're talking about for our future politicians.
Okay, action. We're moving fast. We're action stage now. Okay, opportunities to be involved. If we have at all sparked any interest or passion in you today, which I hope we have, then please come to our state legislative day on February 25th, 2020. It's in Des Moines at the state capitol. Tina can answer all of your questions about it, or Tracy in here as well. It is a great day. We have CEUs in the morning. We have a couple presentations in the morning, and in the afternoon we actually go up to the state capitol and talk to our representatives and senators about our priority areas. Please come. That's a good way to start to get engaged. Advocacy workshop is a workshop that is at the federal level. The Academy of Nutrition Dietetics puts it on. It's usually yearly, but they won't have another one until spring 2021. So this is a very similar thing to what we do at the state level, except we go all the way to Washington, D.C., and we work with the larger academy to go to our state senators and state representatives' offices to talk to them about our policy issues. The Iowa Academy sends people on a scholarship. We pay for you to go. It is fun, it is easy, and you learn a lot. So if you're at all interested, be aware that there's scholarships coming for that. Then lastly, in-district home visits with your legislators. If you know someone, if you're interested in doing some kind of gathering with them, we can try to get AMPAC funds for that and support that. You can also do legislator visits to your workplace, show them what dietitians do, just try to be involved in that way. And then you can take action every single day. So we don't really have time for this, but you can work after this with a partner and identify how you can impact policy at the individual level. Again, what's your food policy? At your workplace level, at your community level, at your state level, at your federal level. I heard a couple of people talking to me about how they're now a workplace site for 5210, which is a great policy to implement in your workplace. So if you have not signed up as a 5210 work site, do it. I'm looking at Jill. And then think about the barriers too. So think about what's keeping you from doing what you really want to do, and think about how it connects with policy. And then how does your policy overcome that problem? Okay.
Okay, so to summarize, you need to name your passion, right? And so you might not be able to easily name that right now, but you need to take some time and figure out what your passion is, because that can be your guiding beacon as you continue in your profession. I really encourage you not to forget about the history, so that we know where we've come from and what's been accomplished, and to understand that things didn't always be the way that things didn't always used to. They are today how they used to be. That you need to familiarize yourself with both U.S. and state government structure. It is a barrier that I think keeps a lot of people from getting involved because they don't feel comfortable. They don't really know how the system is set up to know who to go talk to. And so identify 1 to 2 key areas that you'd like to learn more about, and then choose those to stay current. So state nutrition and physical activity policies. They could be policies in your own community. The Farm Bill, the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, Farm to School, Food Corps. Submit action alerts. If there's nothing else, submit those. Apply for the advocacy grant, call, write, talk to your legislators. They need to hear your voice. If they don't hear your voice, then there's not a problem, right? And so we can't sit around and just keep complaining if we're not engaging and saying, we need this fixed, we need your attention. Know the food policy position of your elected officials. That's one way to become familiar with what they stand for and what they have voted on. And then ask upcoming candidates, what's your food policy? And understand what you mean by that. So, identify 2 action items that you can take from today and as sort of your own takeaway. And so then finally, it's really important that we acknowledge that we're planting seeds of knowledge, sustenance, and growth, and that we need to create connections with where our food comes from, because we need to know that for our children and for future generations. We need to know that for our families, for our communities. We need to acknowledge that for our country, for the people of the world, and for our home, the earth. And so we must be and get involved as if our lives depended on it, because they do. Thank you.
I don't think we have time for one question. Does anybody have a question?
Over here, yes.
It's not a question, but many of the DED groups also offer full scholarships to
Great. So the comment is that many of the dietetic practice groups also offer scholarships in order to attend the public policy workshop, or it has a new name, but advocacy summit. Yeah. So thank you.
I just had a quick thought. Oh, this doesn't work.
It's okay, we can hear you, Calvin.
Okay, I have a loud voice. It literally takes 1 minute to do any of the action alerts. It is set up for you. You go click, 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 boom, boom, it goes. If you really want to add in anything else to those action alerts, it takes 5 minutes out of your day. Specifically for TROA, and this is a blend into Allison coming up here in a hot second. I added 3 sentences related to my TROA action alert to include non-diet eating disorder prevention wording in the TROA policy. That's a way that I specifically was able to get some of my information out there to my Congress people, because that is so important. Do the action alert, sign them up. They're awesome. We really need to hit this hard moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, even though they're forms, even though you can fill in your own information, they do respond. The staff or the senators respond. We've gotten some great communication recently with Senator Ernst's office about TROA. They respond. Okay, I don't know if we have time, Doris.
if someone is not a member of the academy, they should take an action.
That's a good question. I don't think you can, because you have to go to Eat Right Pro to participate in Action Alert. So you do have to be
That's a problem.
Oh. Okay, so that's bringing politics into politics here, Doris.
One thing on that, the National Eating Disorder Association also has action alerts that anyone can sign up for, and even with that, you can also put in your little plug for other things that they focus on a little bit more too.
So a lot of organizations have action alerts. So the United States Institute of Peace also has action alerts. And Senator Grassley wrote me back about peace in the United States. So when I filled out an action alert, I was all of a sudden like, why is Senator Grassley writing to me about peace? And I'm like, oh yeah, I filled out that action alert. So yeah, very good. Thank you all for your attention.